I did not make this. This is an amazing little prototype of an item called WALL XD, and XD stands for Expandable Display. You see these little tabs on the side here? Well, when you flip this around, you see that it's got this pattern here. This is the injection molding pattern, and these are key slots. Down here, you have those slotted in, and over here you have a peg system. There is a cover that comes with the side pegs if you're just doing a standalone wall. These can be added on to one another and stacked on top of one another. They come with this broken wood window insert, and these are the detail bricks on a peg system. You may be wondering, why are the bricks on a peg system, and why do these seemingly random ones come out? Well, that's the genius of this design. You can put other details in those peg systems or put the brick back in place, and that is how you create your custom layout for your WALL XD. Mike, who owns High School Creations, designed this product. He ran a Kickstarter that blew way past his funding goal, and as a result, these are currently on pre-order. Now, I asked Mike how I could help him because I thought this was an incredible product design, especially for folks who don't necessarily have time to make their own dioramas. This can act either as a finished product or a blank canvas. You can purchase one of these fully painted and finished from Mike with High School Creations, or you can get a blank canvas in nice gray that you can customize yourself. But he sent me this so that I could demonstrate to all of you what you could do with the product. If you like to paint things but don't like to carve things, or want to have your own customizable display with not just swap out parts but painting ability, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with this. Alright, we're going to start this off by sanding the 3D print down with 320 grit sandpaper. Now, again, your product will not be made out of 3D printed resin. It will be an injection molded material of some type, like ABS or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. You'll have to check with High School Creations on that. But for the sake of this video, I am just sanding this down to prep the surface this way, because it will ensure that the paint that I use adheres properly. I'm going to go ahead and use this sander card product that I was sent. I was sent this as a gift to try out. It's literally what it says. It's these cool little flexible plastic cards that have Velcro on sandpaper that you can use to get around edges and into tight spaces. Once we finish the sanding, I'm going to use some denatured alcohol. You see that it says fuel on there because you can actually use this as like a lantern fuel. But it's perfect for wiping off different types of plastics and cleaning the dust off them and marks and marker and stuff like that. Also forgot to sand these little crevices in between the sidewalk breaks just to make sure they get a nice rounded edge. And then we are sanding the brick off in the same manner to make sure that everything has enough grit and roughness to it to accept the paint properly and make sure that the paint doesn't just peel off. We want it to adhere as much as possible, and so this light sanding with a fine grit should take care of that. You can see the color of the sand, the color of the 3D print changing, getting a little bit lighter as I sand it and prep it. I have found, incidentally, that semi-gloss paints adhere really, really well to 3D prints like this as a base coat. So I'm using this Rust-Oleum 2X paint and primer in one semi-gloss black, not a flat black, not a gloss black. Gloss takes forever to dry and doesn't really cure evenly on this type of a surface. And flat black, I found, actually creates sort of like a peel-off layer of latex and doesn't really sit the way that I want it. But as you can see, this does not scrape off. That's just the first light coat after a few hours. And this is the second coat where I put it on a little bit denser. And we're going to let this dry overnight. And it should adhere really, really strong and really, really nice. And here is the overnight cure. I'm grabbing my fingernails onto that, and it's not peeling any paint off or scratching it really at all. Nice and strong base coat. And this is my first layer of color. I'm using espresso satin. It didn't matter at this point if you use a satin or a flat or a standard. I'm just using satin because it's the color that I happen to have. So once that base coat's on, it's not too big of a deal. Now I am using this nutmeg, and I am going to paint this a specific way. This is my main color. I'm going to do a light coating over the whole piece, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to spray some extra color into the areas where there is the most mass of brick to add sort of a subtle highlight to those areas, make that color denser, as you can see me doing now. And I am intentionally not painting all the way to the bottom evenly and all the way to the top. You can see it's a little darker down there because that espresso and black show through, and it's a little darker up there. That's to create shading and weathering in my initial paint layer. So you can see how painting strategically with my spray paint leaves me a nice shaded area near the bottom here. You can see I've got a darker area. There's a little dot right there, but I'm going to leave that just like that, and I can clean that up with washes and things, so I'm not worried about little artifacts like that. There's a couple little breakages because of my mishandling of the piece, but it'll end up looking like weathering in the end. But you can see this shadow that's been created by just using a trick of how we layer our spray paints. And you can tell this is nice and cured. Looks great with just spray paint. Let's paint the base. So I got a medium to dark gray out of just a cheap off-the-shelf acrylic paint, and I'm sort of smear brushing this on. I'm not trying to create a perfectly even coat because I want some of the black showing through. Once that's done and it's smear brushed and it's dry but not cured, I go back with a lighter gray to create a second tone over that. And again, I'm sort of smear dry brushing this, and I'm paying attention to have my lines be directional so that they flow like you would a concrete layer with a broom or a trowel when he's troweling out the surface to be even. And I'm also going back with my finger and smearing over the paint to make sure that it actually has some inconsistencies in the drying process to make it look more like walked on concrete. This is the result of letting that dry completely, and you can see the effects of making it look like walked on concrete. You have different plays of sheen and gray. I'm very happy with that. And I took some red, yellow, orange, and sort of a moss green, and I flicked paint splatter onto the concrete and onto the wall to make it look like natural weathering, maybe splashes or moss or somebody spilt their drink. And also you get artifacts in concrete like that, color artifacts from rock and stuff that get into the concrete when it's initially poured, as well as stuff coming off of people's shoes as they walk over it. I decided to paint a mural. These are the colors that I started with. And I started that off by blocking out shapes in the colors that I liked. I thought it would be fun to use these colors because I planned on offsetting them with a complementary color, which was the color of High School Creations logo, the gentleman who actually designed this product. So this is the result of the color blocking. And then I kind of went crazy with the white on the airbrush and some red on the airbrush just to add some highlights and differences. And I went back with a Sharpie and traced the outer edge of my mural. And then I retraced that edge with some flat black on a flat tip brush. And then I drew a stylized version of High School Creations logo and came back with some denatured alcohol and a rag and wiped off some of the paint to make it look weathered. And then I came back with some dirty paint water and added some grime to the piece. I started at the top and brushed my way down. I let the thing splatter on the concrete because it adds to the naturalness of the weathering and the layout of the wash. And when you try to go too intentional, sometimes it doesn't exactly end up how you want, but I find when I go random, I get more realistic results. And so this is what I'm doing. I'm just laying it out and then dabbing it off to make it look like I want it to. I just kind of go back and forth until I'm satisfied with it. Once that dried overnight, I seal the whole thing with matte clear. And this is the results of our paint job. As you can see, I added that little red zone highlight to it. And you can see there's some black showing through. That's because I came back with denatured alcohol and kind of smeared back and forth with some of my wash water just to create some variance and effect. Again, just to add detail and more weathering. I go back and forth with washes and denatured alcohol to get different effects as I see fit. Here it is in the sun, which is always my favorite test. If it looks good in bright sunlight, it'll look good in any lighting, or you can make it look good in any lighting. And of course, the funnest and most best test is when you put your toys in it. Here is what some of my favorite toys look like in this diorama. I thought they looked good with the colors that I put on it. If you'd like to order one of these, the link is below. The pre-order closes on May 12th. That is 24 hours after I posted this video, so get it now.